only editor, he's also the co-founder, and so he is the perfect person to run this. So I'm going to let Kevin introduce everybody else. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the standing ovation. So I'm Kevin Delaney. I'm the editor, co-founder of QUARTZ. We're at QZ.com. Our panel today is about the future of work. It's reasonable to have anxiety about how all of our jobs will change with automation, with AI. But our focus today is what smart companies are doing to anticipate these changes, to empower their workers, to empower their workforce to be ready for the changes in how work will evolve. We have a supremely qualified panel here to talk about it. Next to me, I have Sophie Bellon. She is the chairwoman of the board of directors of SODEXO. Next to her, we have Stewart Butterfield. All right. Stewart Butterfield, he's the co-founder and CEO of Slack and founded Flickr before that. Next to him, we have Alison Kay. She's the global vice chair for industry at EY. Thank you. And next to her, we have John Collison. He's the co-founder and president of Stripe. Last but not least, Alex Dayon, a proud son of France and resident of Silicon Valley. He is a president and chief strategy officer at SALESFORCE. So thank you all. So we're going to start, Alison, we're going to start with you. So you're at EY. You work with clients in most parts of the world, and you have something like 250,000 employees in EY alone. Can you start us off with your vision of how work will change ahead of us? What precisely is automation and AI? What does that mean for jobs and for companies?
Oh, thank you. So yes, I think the AI and automation revolution is well underway, and I think there are a lot of upsides to that. I think a lot of the mundane tasks that we're seeing are going to go away completely. I think that has profound implications for large organizations like EY, but also many other large organizations, where we're really having to look at the skill base of all our employees and bring them much more into the digital age, the analytics, the research, the ability also to truly be able to interpret what data is saying and use that in a much more informed way. So I think, we're really having to look at a very different workforce in the future.
And what are the smartest companies doing, you think, to address that change?
Well, one of the observations I've got in the workforce, I'm sure my panel will see this as well, that we're really looking at how we can facilitate somebody's career. So this isn't about somebody having to be with EY forever. Our world is actually enabling our people to have external accreditation for some of these critical future skills around AI, around blockchain, around analytics. They get externally accredited so that those badges can go with them forever. And I think we really see ourselves as part of somebody's career journey, not their career in itself.
Okay, so badges for employees as part of training. We'll come back to training and education more broadly. Stewart, you next. So Slack is a platform that enables communication and collaboration among people who work within a company. What sort of changes to the nature of work do you anticipate ahead of us due to platforms like Slack and also automation and AI?
I'm not so sure that I expect this as hope for it, but I think over the last 20 or 30 years, in most occupations, people have become dramatically more productive inside of their specific functional role. So for example, a recruiter in 2018 has access to LinkedIn, has email, has an applicant tracking system, has tools for automatically sorting and scoring resumes that are incoming. Whereas in 1991, I don't know what they did. Like they had the white pages and they would call people randomly and say, hello, are you a plumber? I would like to hire plumbers. Same thing with salespeople, same thing with engineers, same thing IT, finance, legal. But the area that hasn't improved so much is communication. And so the bottleneck in most organizations is the handoff between people. And Kevin and I were talking about this backstage, but even things as simple as Gmail's predictive suggestions for how to respond to an email take a little bit of the friction out. And there are thousands of examples of that in the workday of most professionals, most knowledge workers. And if we can make small kind of stepwise advancements in those areas, it'll make a really big difference.
Does that change what a worker does in their day? You know, ultimately, what is the cumulative effect of things like that on what you need to be able to do to perform your job and how you actually spend your workday?
Yeah, because you think about the tropes of culture around office work. So in the US, the TV show The Office, or the British show The Office, the movie Office Space, or the cartoon Dilbert, and just the complaints that people typically make: long meetings, too much email, and those have been the same, like really constant for decades. People tend to not see that as part of their work, so their work is to do whatever their role-specific function provides: sales, legal, IT. But it's the coordination between people that's especially important in large organizations, and probably where most of the productivity dies. So if you think about the theoretical maximum productivity of an organization like our company, Slack, is about a little over 1,000 employees, we're probably about 70% wasted output, and I think we're significantly better than the average. It might be 90% inside of many large organizations.
So 70% of people's effort is wasted because of lack of collaboration and communication and handoff and things like that.
I'm entirely making that up. So this is not, like, 70% is how I feel more than some data that I have.
Okay, great. Sophie, I want to pull you in. So you're running a services business with about 450,000 employees globally. What are the implications for services from automation and these other technology developments?
So absolutely, we have 450,000 people around the world, and our team, you know, they do 100 services, so they can feed a premature baby in a hospital, or take care of students in universities, or work in the Pilbara Desert in Australia for people working in a mine. And they do all kind of jobs, you know, and I think their job is, what I really think is that their job with technology can be more secure, and they can perform better. For example, we use drones to go on rooftops and to avoid and to check some maintenance things. Or we use virtual training. And for example, last year in Roland Garros, we trained 500 people very quickly, and we half of our incident and accidents, we reduced by half our accidents. Or, you know, those kind of things are going to be very helpful for our teams. And also, in our business, you know, there is a shortage of workers in certain business. For example, caregivers in seniors. And I think technology can help. There are some robots, you know, Paro. I don't know if you know Paro, the little seal for seniors. Or we have ELQ also. It's one companion robot that is used. But what I think is that technology is going to help, definitely. But I think human will always need human to take care of them. And so I'm very optimistic, because I think, you know, with the specialists of the tech and with people like us that have people, you know, that have soft skills, you know, interpersonal relationship skills are very important.
So you are very optimistic. Lots of people are concerned that the sort of jobs that your employees are performing will actually go away, or they'll become even lower value, basically.
I think some jobs will go away. For example, apparently in the US, one of the first job is a truck driver. Yeah. And of course, one day, you know, maybe, I don't know when, but there won't be any more truck driver. And so I think some jobs will disappear, but some new jobs will appear. And I'm absolutely convinced that job with human skill and you know, caring about people. Nothing will replace, you know, someone looking at you in the eyes and understand, you know, and nothing will replace that. And I even think that the more we will, you know, we will use application and have and live and sleep with our phones and our computers, the more we will also need to relate to real people. And there's been studies showing that too.
Yeah, and people like Bill Gates and Kai-Fu Lee and others have said that caregivers are among the professions that they think could be more valued and exist in greater quantities. I'm going to go to Alex next and then to John. So Alex, you know, Salesforce works with lots of companies who are digitizing their organizations by using Salesforce and other services. How do you see the implementation of technology affecting the nature of the work that people are doing inside of those companies?
So yes, indeed, Salesforce is at the heart of this digital transformation, because what's really happening in the fourth industrial revolution is your customers are connected. The customers become the center of every business process, and you're eliminating a lot of walls that existed in the past to create those new experiences. And the successful companies are the companies who know their customers. In fact, the largest market cap are companies who have data about their customers, and they can interact intelligently with their customers, and that's kind of our business. So it's a huge transformation. It's a huge revolution that is impacting every business, whether you're in retail, in the automotive industry, in aerospace. Your world is shifting, and this is creating a massive stress on the skill sets you need to have internally. But I think what's also very important, every time we meet CEOs or C-level executives who are coming to San Francisco to see us and talk about the future of my company, how do I transform myself around the customer? For us, the discussion evolves very quickly around the culture of your enterprise, because in this new world, as your employees get closer to your customers, your culture is way more visible. And make sure that you always put the culture first and your values first. And for us, what's really important in this new world, in this fourth industrial revolution, is trust. As a CEO of a tech company, if you don't put trust at the very beginning of everything you do, well, we've seen the consequences. I was at VivaTech 2 years ago. Some CEOs are no longer here because they didn't put trust on top of their list. And trust is obviously about trust with your customers, your services, but also trust with your employees. Are you operating around the right values? Are you being inclusive? Are you really taking actions about gender diversity? Because this is the future of work. New jobs are going to be created. Are you opening those new jobs to everybody? And we believe at Salesforce is a very important element. That's why we're sponsoring the Equality Lounge at VivaTech. But also the technology itself needs to be inclusive. You need to reduce the barrier to entry to technology, because there is so many engineers in AI will be able to produce. Everybody needs to be able to be a digital marketer. Everybody needs to be able to run an e-commerce site. So that's kind of the way we look at the new jobs and the future based on what we see with customers.
And we're going to go to John in just a second, but before we do, actually, what in the companies that you're working with, what is the nature of workers that they're looking for? What are the skills or
well, I'll take a very simple example. You need to be specific to industries, but if you look at the retail industries or the consumer goods industry, e-commerce has taken a big part. For most companies, e-commerce now represents 20–25% of their sales, which means that you see a lot of brands shutting down stores and moving the resource they put in their stores into online. Online becomes the largest store. It doesn't mean less jobs. In fact, you need a lot of people to run an e-commerce operation. You need digital marketers, you need tech support, you need online assistants, you need e-commerce specialists. These are amazing jobs. These are the new jobs, and that's a big challenge for leaders and CEOs, because you need to reskill your own workforce from working in stores to doing those new jobs. And our mission is obviously for us to provide the tools and the trainings, the free trainings, to get that workforce reskilled.
Yeah, so we're going to come back with everybody to this question of training and what skills are needed. But John, so Stripe is a payments platform that is used by Amazon and Slack and SODEXO and Salesforce and Microsoft and others. Can you draw a line between the services that Stripe is providing and the future of work? How does that play?
Absolutely. We believe very strongly that the future of work is in much more of an integrated global economy than in local domestic economies. I think we're seeing this already. And yeah, you'll get, years in which, global trade seems like it's, on the wane, and years in which it's waxing. But overall, the trend is very much towards a more integrated global economy. And we see this all the time, where we have, our French customers, companies like Blade, the gaming company, selling to people all over the world. That is, in a way, the new normal for startups that are being created today, in a way that it wasn't 20 years ago. And then the other aspect of the future of work is much more flexibility, both in terms of the ability to start a business, in terms of the gig economy and the platform economy, in terms of moving away from the traditional career employment model to multiple employers or participating on the side or things like that. We see this with Stripe, where you have people who, it's orders of magnitude easier to start a business than it was a decade ago, thanks to tools like Slack, tools like Stripe, and the startup stack that's available to people generally. And so, in general, I worry a bit with this future of work discussion. We can get a bit hyperbole. It's media friendly to say the sky is falling down and the jobs are being eliminated. I think the best predictor of the future of work is you take that Alan Kay quote, the future is here, but not evenly distributed yet. Yeah. Look at the present leading edge of work and trend those, project those trends forward. And I think that what that results in is a very global economy, more flexibility, and digital skills being really important. Never mind, we all need to be AI engineers. Let's just, as companies, all require us to be technologically competent. I think the test for traditional companies out there is, how long does it take you to add a new page to your website? Not change the content on a page, but add a new page to your website. That's a good litmus test for, are you ready to for this digital age?
What's the right answer?
The right answer is a very short amount of time, less than a day. But for a lot of companies, it's not true. Or are you using any kind of machine learning or artificial intelligence in production? Not just in the innovation department. I sort of think innovation departments are the worst thing ever, because they allow companies off the hook. They allow teams to fiddle around with technologies, and executives can say on stage that, oh, we do blockchain, we do AI, but unless you're actually being forced by the market to make it good and actually make it produce, at Stripe we use artificial intelligence extensively in production for blocking fraud. We blocked $4 billion in attempted fraud last year, and it would really hurt our business if that AI didn't work. And I think unless you have that pressure to perform using these new technologies, you're going to just be talking about it.
So you have fraudsters pushing you to actually apply them. I want to ask you...
It's very motivating having, people
$4 billion
waking up every
worth
morning
of fraud
trying to steal money from you.
I want to go broadly to this question of training to the group, but before we do, you've talked about how the gig economy and how Stripe and others are enabling this sort of new definition of work that's much less attached to a single employer or not very traditional. There's some critics of that who say, that's actually kind of precarious, and are you just selling me this sort of dream of entrepreneurialism and taking away the guarantee of work to support my family and so forth? How do you answer that concern?
Yeah, so I think there are some long-term trends happening here. The platform economy is happening. A third of French startups that were funded over the past 3 years are platform startups to some degree. And in general, people are moving away from spending, decades at the scene company to, the actual time spent in role at companies is shorter, and it's good. Millennials have more options for work, and they're taking advantage of those options. And so those trends are happening, regardless of what we would think, regardless of what we would do. I think in a lot of economies, we have this artificial distinction between the benefits you get as an employee and the benefits you get as, a participant in a platform company. And obviously we should be moving towards rectifying that, and Dara from Uber had an announcement yesterday that I think was a great step in that direction.
Okay, so I want to focus on this question of training, because we have to get from where we are today to this future state of work. Obviously it's not a straight path, but training, education are clearly some of the key components. Maybe Alison, we'll go back to you. What are you seeing working in terms of this area? And for companies that want to be ahead of this, how should they approach it?
Well, I'd actually like to start with brand, and what attracts talent in the first place is not so much the training courses, but it's actually the brand of the organization. And I think so many people now are really interested in, is a brand purposeful? Is there meaning to the work I do? Is it beyond just actually creating a task or doing a piece of work? There has to be meaningful work, and I think that is really, really critical as a starting point to how organizations attract the best talent, because there is a war on talent. Everybody wants similar skills, they want the similar people. So, you know, when you look at the work of today and the fact that sort of 60+% of the jobs are not yet created because the future is somewhat unknown, what attracts people to an organization in the first place is a meaningful work, meaningful, purposeful work that is doing something beyond making money. There's got to be meaning to it. So I think then that also brings into how organizations are really looking after their people, are training their people, or are educating their people. I think there's a lot to do for organizations thinking beyond just the standard, you know, Weeble-based training courses that get put out there. And it's a lot more experiential in terms of how people are wanting to learn and develop and experience. And as I said earlier, it's not just about within one organization. People will move throughout their career to different companies, and I think companies really will be blessed with the best talent if they can genuinely look at themselves and say they're part of somebody's long-term career, but they don't own that career.
So you're acknowledging that people change jobs and will change jobs more often, but also committing to training them and having a brand that will attract them. Stewart, maybe we go to you. You have your company is young, so it's probably more of you're not retraining people so much. But if if you're talking to some of your clients and others, how would you counsel them? Like, what's the key to actually having workers who are ready for what is going to be required of them 5 or 10 years from now?
I think the good news is for most people, and there's 7 billion people on the planet, so it's hard to speak universally about all different kinds of work, so this is not going to apply to farmers, for example. But thinking about people with knowledge worker positions, the good news is there'll be more of a reliance on human intelligence and creativity as we automate away and therefore augment the abilities of these humans, automating away the things that humans do poorly. So remembering things, doing arithmetic. There's a lot of capabilities that computers give us that just weren't possible before at all. So comparing hundreds of billions of items to one another and detecting patterns. And the ingenuity required to make good use of those capabilities is going to be more and more in demand. So understanding the use of the tools, the development of strategies to get more out of them. We look at, one simple example is the spread of kind of analytics and data science around organizations. It's the application of that to recruiting inside of a large organization, or to spend management, or to IT, that are going to pay huge dividends. So I think a set of relatively basic skills, knowing how to operate the software, knowing what it's capable of, are going to lead to a lot more time spent on things that are more interesting for people.
Sophie, so Stewart's talking about human intelligence and creativity as being key skills or key things that employees are bringing. What would you say in the services area especially? What are the key things that you're identifying in people or training for? Well,
I think human intelligence is absolutely important. Creativity, interpersonal skills, caregiving skills, listening, and soft skills are very important. And I think there is a study that the fastest among the top fastest growing jobs, 50% concerns quality of life services like nurse, therapist, personal coach, trainers. So of course, we all need to learn and to be able to use those tools that give us access to to an augmented life and reality. But at the same time, we will still need people that are doing those service jobs. And we need to value those skills too, because I think it's very different to be a good engineer or mathematician and to be a person that is going to be able to take care of someone else.
Yeah.
And I think also children today, 65% of the children that go to school today, we don't even know what their jobs is going to be.
Yeah.
So I think we cannot only make them learn math, we have to also make them learn something else. And I'm not sure it's something that we have been teaching so far.
How do you teach that?
How do you teach that?
Yeah.
I don't know, you explore, you do some, you
The Montessori education is probably a start.
You explore with
pull John in. What can the education system do? Is there in terms of preparing people for the future, do you have any view on where education needs to get to beyond today to equip people to get us to that place?
One thing I would love to see is more educational institutions taking really seriously setting people up for the kind of work they're going to do in the future. And that sounds kind of funny when you say it that way, but there's often a pretty big gap between the education people receive in college and then what they're expected to do once they go into the workforce. And it feels like we could try out a bunch of different things and innovate on the educational side and see what's working. I'll give you one example, which is the University of Waterloo is one of the most successful CS schools. I'm sure you guys hire a bunch from Waterloo. We hire a ton from Waterloo. It's one of the top colleges, despite the fact many people here might not have heard of it. It's a college in a small town in Canada. And what they do that's so innovative is that a lot of students there do a 5-year degree and they will do 5 long internships with companies as part of it. And so by the time they graduate, they've been flipping back and forth between learning in the academic environment and putting their skills to work in some kind of job. It doesn't have to be that in particular, but I love to see a university actually playing with how can we set our students up best for the workforce, and then what can we give them to prepare them? And that's one example that's working incredibly well in the computer science domain.
And that was your own experience, right?
Say again?
That was your own experience?
Well, my experience had less education in a period. I ended up dropping out, but that is one we have first-hand experience with at Stripe.
Yeah, great. Alex, I want to bring you in for this question of getting us to the future, training specifically, education.
Yeah.
What do we have to get in place now? And you're going to get the last word.
No, training is pretty much on top of mind for us. We run a survey with IDC about how many jobs are going to be created in our extended ecosystem just for Salesforce. And in the next 5 years, it's 2 million jobs worldwide. It's 150,000 jobs that don't exist today are going to be created around our own solutions. So 150,000 just in France. And we feel it's both a challenge, but it's a fantastic opportunity for diversity first, because we can obviously be way more inclusive if we look at it the right way. And that's why 4 years ago we decided to embark on that mission, which is to open a free education platform called Trailhead. And something magic happened, because today you can go to trailhead.com, get certified, learn, find a job. But what really happened on this training path was the community. There's something really interesting right now happening in these new jobs, is because they are not trained in schools or university. You have those informal communities happening. There is kind of this Salesforce, we call them the trailblazers, and they wear their hoodies and they kind of have their own identity. And the other day I was in a shopping mall in Boston, and there is a Microsoft store, and I saw all those people wearing Trailblazer hoodies in a Microsoft store. So I step in and say, what are you doing? Oh, we are the Salesforce Trailblazer people. And say, okay, what it is? Well, we're learning together. And they just self-form. And I think there is something really powerful happening right now. If you give the platform and the community tools and the collaboration tools, people are eager, and it's very diverse. If you look at those people, it's very diverse. But you need to provide the tools. So you need a commitment as a brand to provide the tools for everybody to be really inclusive, to create their own communities and their own learning path. because the jobs are there and everybody wants those jobs. And what's also very exciting at this conference, I have more companies coming to me asking me to connect the Trailhead community to their hiring process. To say, I need to hire people. Can you send those people to me? And I think that's very powerful. So training is clearly the fuel that is going to fuel those future jobs.
So we have a group of executives here who are optimistic about the future of work, whether it's in caregiving, whether it involves fewer meetings, whether it's about being trained for badges, whether it's entrepreneurial, whether it is one of these 2 million jobs that have yet to be created. So thank you all, Alex, John, Alison, Stewart, and Sophie. Thanks very much.